Hi everyone, I'm Pranoy. I'll quickly get started since we leave some time. So I'm a product manager at Microsoft. I've been at the company since 2018, working on the B2B space, helping take a product from 0 to 1, called the Microsoft Productivity Score. Before that, experience-wise, I'll quickly run through my background, but I think the core of the presentation today was making my experience my own and essentially using that to get into the PM world is something that is close to my heart. And I definitely want to touch on that. And I'd love to see questions from you folks as well as if some of you are trying to navigate that path on your side, if you have questions, would love to be able to answer those. So just from a background sense, today I'm in product management, but from my path has not been like a straightforward one where, bam, I'm in Microsoft day one of my career. It's been sort of a meandering path for me, and as I have figured out like my strengths, my weaknesses, what I really want to do, so I'll sort of touch upon that a little bit so that helps set the stage, the foundation for the rest of the presentation. So foundationally, I was an engineer. I studied 5 years electrical engineering. I did my bachelor's and master's with specialization in VLSI design. This was again the 5 most formative years of my life. The best part for my experience, besides again the relationships that you make in that experience, was the ability to build stuff, to create stuff, and some of my best experiences were also as part of like the internships that I did, and a lot of them were focused on math and programming. So you start to see the, again, I wouldn't call it a dissonance, but start to see that themes emerging as you go through some of these experiences around the fact that even though I was in electrical engineering, stuff about computer science and math and programming was really the ones that like really drove me. So after school, like again, I don't know about you guys, I did not have a very good sense of, okay, like this is like the core industry that I wanted to be in. I chose consulting because it gives you the ability to be in a zone to solve problems, but from a disparate range of industries, a range of problems that you could go into. I consider this like a lucky break as well, because this is the space where I got to really indulge and like understand the power of big data, machine learning, analytics that was really coming to the fore in 2012 when I really started. In fact, my first project like out of engineering school was looking at a Kaggle competition trying to predict hospitalization based on insurance claims data. So that idea of being able to predict something with data was extremely interesting to me. So even though I was on a lot of client facing projects as well, and in retrospect, from a PM standpoint, it does help to be able to talk to your clients, understand their needs. But what really drove me at that point was to be able to go deep into like the ML side, do cool stuff, essentially. I wanted to dig a little deeper. So that's why I went to American Express and was in the fraud risk management space for a while. This was 3.5 years, got to do a lot of cool projects again on using data, using machine learning, using deep neural networks, to try and predict fraud. Uh, in this experience is where I think like my maturity around what I really value in the career that I have really started to shape and form, because what I started to realize was, besides the fact that, okay, I am trying to build something that is cool, uh, another thing that came to the fore was what is really the impact of the work that I'm making. And while fraud data science gave me that perspective, from my point of view, I was in the space of risk management. I wanted to go a little bit broader to really understand from an end-to-end perspective, how do you really handle a business? Um, so I had been into financial services for a while as well. So I thought, like, why not explore a little bit more around like what the businesses could I really be a part of and be able to contribute to that. So that's when I like went for my MBA at Chicago Booth. Was a transformative experience for me. Besides the fact that the breadth of things that you're exposed to from a curriculum standpoint, the kind of people that you interact with on a regular basis, the courses that you take, um, the most of it was around the perspectives of the people that form the class with you, and that was really the transformative experience for me, where I started to really figure out, okay, like if this is the career path that I really want, then like how do I make that happen? And that was and the idea of the communication that helps that make that happen was really coming to the fore in my MBA. I had a slight transition in my path here as well as part of investment banking because uh, the point of view that I again came with was if I am in the space of understanding impact in business and how to drive that forward, one thing that became important was understanding if you are the CEO or the CFO of a company, how do you really think about expanding or launching into new space from the point of view of, say, mergers and acquisitions? So that is a problem that seemed extremely interesting to me. So I did that for 2 months as my summer internship. But then I think what I figured out, at least on my point of view, was while I liked having the strategic scope of like understanding where do I really fit in the market and what part of the market do I need to capture and who do I want to partner with, or from a mergers and acquisition standpoint to take my business forward, was extremely interesting. I still figured out that the part of me that wanted to keep on building things was still very much around. So that's when, like, very serendipitously, I met folks from Chicago booth who were at Microsoft. They explained kind of like the point of view that the product management role tends to take in terms of like the breadth and the scope of the impact of the work that you do. And that's really how I landed at Microsoft. So again, a meandering story, but I think the foundational steps that always kind of like stuck with me was I wanted to build things. I wanted to be with something on the cutting edge. And the maturity development for me was understanding how does the work that I do like land in terms of business impact. And that's the journey that I've had like as I've progressed in my career. Cool. So I think there are three pieces that I wanted to talk about today. And again, the primary piece that I wanted to touch on, that like irrespective of the background that you and I would have, how do you mold that and how do you essentially look for signals to be able to understand, okay, like PM is the career for me, and this is how my experience builds into a PM role. Because if you think about like the role in itself, it's pretty overwhelming, right? Like you do user experience one day, you're looking at content research, you're looking at design, you're looking at data, you're looking at development. You can't really be a master of all. I mean, you can be like a jack of some, but really to understand where you bring value is the most important thing, I feel. So what I've done here is sort of like look at my experience and try to connect the dots on like as I've gone through my journey, which of these points have really contributed to me being where I am and are still helping me today of going from one strength to the other while helping me understand, okay, these are my growth areas. And I'll quickly touch on some things that I faced or like I had to grapple with when I went into like the PM role fresh out of business school, and some learnings that I had along the way. And as I'm in the next phase of my PM career, like what do I look forward to and what have really helped me? So just wanted to share that with you guys and see like if that resonates with you. Cool. So I think if we think about like our careers and like breaking into product management, the way I was thinking about is was if you take a step back and if you think about before you like decide that PM is the career for you, if you are the product manager for your career, what would you do? Like how do you decide that what your needs are, what is the solutions and which solution should you prioritize, and of the list of solutions, is product management the solution for your career that you should prioritize? I think that's the first question that we should start with. So here what I've done is like sort of like laid down a few key pillars of what the product management role entails, and like how do you kind of like if you start to reflect on what drives you, what are you really good at, that can help you kind of take the decision. So, and the first part is like what questions, like let me go back. What questions do you want to answer for the customer, for example? Or, it can be a customer, it can be a client, it can be like an entire industry. But it's when you're trying to think about building something, what is it that really interests you? And what I've tried to do here is if you think about the questions, it can be phrased in the form of what do I build? Why do I build it? And how to build it? So, and if you think and reflect on your experiences and what really drives you, if you think about the questions of what and why are the ones that resonate with you more than the how. Again, don't get me wrong that like as a product manager, you definitely be involved in the how of the question, but like defining the what and defining the why are definitely the centerpiece and what your entire team will look to you to do. So if that's the one thing that probably interests you more than the how, maybe product management is the right solution for you. Uh, and when it comes to like now that you've decided like what to build, there can be still like a few solutions that you can think about. And when you think about that framework, how do you prioritize? How do you think about what solution or like what project do I want to build? And is it really centered on your obsession about the value for customers, or you know what, I like building cool things, and that's okay. Like it's totally fine on like what your personal choice is. But if you think back and look, you know what, even if this is the most foundational, the most basic mundane task that is needed to be done, but that's the thing that will lead to more impact for the customer, maybe PM is for you. So that would be one other signal that you could look for. And the final piece I think is like, again, going back to this, the broad scope of the role that you have, I think one thing that doesn't change when you go from like one team or one company or one organization to another is the idea of ownership. Where if you look at a product and you go like, you know what, I want to be concerned with like this one part of this feature or of this product, this one particular feature, I'd make it the greatest thing in the world. And I might not care about some of the other things like how do people get to use it? What are the kind of customer complaints that are coming in? What's the sort of documentation that's in there for people to be able to use this? And that's really where like the PM role has its highs and its lows as well, because as a PM, no one else is going to like pick up some of the stuff that is not like getting the love and the attention that it deserves. So essentially, like as a PM, you got to raise your hand up and say, you know what, if no one else is going to do it, I'm the one to be doing it. And you sort of start there and you become like the catch-all of everything that is to be done for the product. So if you are in that frame of mind where like, you know what, no matter what happens, I will own this and this is my job to do, then PM is probably for you. um, so and I what I did was I sort of created like a timeline and tried to connect the dots from like my career path, my highlights as well. So again, going back to like what my journey has been, when I started off with engineering, what I really liked was looking at algorithms, math, programming. When I was in consulting, it was learning about business impact, managing clients. As I went through my MBA, some of the most interesting classes that I did, and like what really like made me drive like really hard was lab on new products, the corporate finance class, and behavioral economics. Like how do people make decisions, for example? That's something that I never worked on before based on like my experience in my education. So this was like something that was completely fascinating. And if you kind of like take that and think about if if let's say you are in marketing or you're in customer support, like what are the aspects of these jobs that you've done, or maybe like an internship, like, or maybe a volunteer experience that you do outside of work? Like, what's the one aspect of that that becomes like a highlight? A good exercise could be kind of taking that and reflecting and putting that like on a piece of paper. And I think all of us who've thought about, even like uh, read any book that starts to talk about like the PM role, I think this Venn diagram is the one that's always front and center. It's about like the you being up like at the nice center of like business, UX, and tech. Um, and then when I look back at my experience, I think every piece that I've highlighted here has some relationship whatsoever to the three aspects of the PM role. And what this really goes to show is like, no matter what your experience is, I think there are definitely areas in which you have an expertise, you are kind of bringing that value. And as a PM in a product company, I think there is definitely your perspective and your unique experience that matters, and that can bring that forward. But the idea is that these connections, they're not obvious sometimes. But at the end of the day, before you become a product manager, you are the product manager for your career as well. So if you think back and like do this reflection, this might be a pretty worthwhile exercise to do, and figure out, okay, like, am I seeing the right signals for me to be in the PM path, or not? If not, that's great. If yes, fantastic. Let's talk more. Um, Now, a second part that I want to talk about was, once you are in the PM role, I'm like, what do you do? Like, and what I've tried to do is like touch on like a few things that, again, like I said, like I've grappled with. So I just want to share that just from a guidance sake. And if you've like come across some of these things on your side as well, might help you think about, okay, like what to do next and how to sort of move forward with it. So imposter syndrome, right? Like we talk about it a lot, and I think, given again like the breadth of the role that you have, the product management role is the one that very easily gets to a point where you face this imposter syndrome, where you're in meetings where you have no idea what people are talking about. There is 15 jargons that you will learn every new meeting of your day, and we're like, am I really here to contribute? Can I really add value? And how am I really supposed to be owning this when I have no idea what these people are talking about? Believe me, this happens to everyone. I think even today in meetings, there are so many of them where I am not really the smartest person in the room, and I don't really know like answers to all of the questions. But that's a great thing in itself, right? Because at the end of the day, you want to be in a place where there is enough ambiguity and there are smart people around you that are subject matter experts. But at the end of the day, the what and the why are still with you, and that's the one that you can anchor yourself on. Is like, no matter like the kind of solutions that are being discussed, or like the complexity of the problems, it's something to embrace, and that's really where growth comes from. So the point is, like, it's perfectly fine if you're bang on not the smartest person in the room from day one. Things take time, and growth happens with time. So just take it and like go with the flow would be the advice. The second piece is, okay, that was one of the spectrum where I thought, okay, you know what, like I'm not really adding value. The other piece was, oh, let me this I've seen this problem enough. I'll try to solve this in like in go into a room. I'll do the data analysis. I'll do the designs. I'll do everything on my own. Don't be this person, because again, you are not the problem who are not the person who is going to define the how. You can help influence the decision, but a lot of the PM role is essentially getting people who are the subject matters here, the developers, the designers, the data scientists, to get to answer some of these questions. But you like the multiple arms that you can use are not for actually doing the work, but actually making sure that they are spending their energies in like the right areas, and you can contribute to it, but you are not always the problem solver in every space. And I think there's value in that, because that makes sure that there are diverse perspectives that's come in to solve a problem rather than, you know what, I know a certain way of doing this and let's just keep doing this. So like enhancing that relationship would definitely bring value, and that's the best thing that you can bring as a product manager, I feel. um, and finally, yes, like not trying to solve everything, but if you can listen to customers, if you can really distill, whether it's focus group, whether it's primary research, whether it's like a one-on-one conversation, if you can distill those learnings, amplify them and bring them to your team, I think that's really where the value comes from. And as much as like people talk about like trying to know cloud computing, trying to know like the technology that powers it all, if you have like the power to listen and prioritize, I think that's your superpower that every PM should have. And again, on my point of view, I'm also trying to develop that. So that'd be a healthy thing to develop as you go forward in your PM career. And really, and the best part of the role I feel is like it is what you make of it. But some things that uh, I think I have learned as I'm getting into like the second phase almost of my career is it always helps to be curious. When you say that, it's like besides the work that you do, try to branch out, try to talk to people and like what kind of problems are they trying to solve. Some of the best projects that I've done so far have actually come out of hackathons that I've been a part of, and they're incredibly satisfying. Even them, some of them don't land into like actual product. The experience of like collaborating and trying to solve like a fresh problem from a fresh perspective is something that you can like take and apply in other places as well. So definitely would emphasize that. Um, Take time to reflect. Like what am I really good at? Like I've done 6 months of like work as a PM. Am I really getting good at design? Am I really getting good at like corralling people, coordinating? Is that something that I really want to be good at or be better at? And use that to be maybe become like form the guidepost of like where do you want to go in your journey as the next step. So I think that's a very important thing to do. And one of the good ways to do that is actually seeking mentorship and seek like talking to people. And mentors could be peers, mentors could be people who are extremely experienced, or it could be just a friend. And having someone to look at your career from like a third person perspective is always helpful, because again, the idea of diverse perspective and like bringing that fresh eye to a problem always helps you. But at the end of the day, you are the product manager for your career, so you would take all of that decision, distill it, and really figure out what's the best thing for you. Right. That was it from my side. So now I'll hand it over to you. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Pranoy. That was an excellent presentation. It really resonated with my aspiring PM side. So now, yes, we're opening the floor for one or two questions. So if anyone has a question, please unmute yourself and go ahead and ask it. I actually have a question, and I'll get the ball rolling here. Sure. So I was wondering if you have any tips for, I know that you transitioned from multiple sectors. Do you have any tips for like how to stand out in an interview as a PM?
I think great question. Thank you. I think one thing to bring out definitely is, like I said, thinking about like the customer at the very go. And like and the thing that becomes interesting is, especially let's say you worked in a different sector. For example, I worked as like a data scientist before. And if you have the ability to think about problems from the customer's perspective, and let's say I'm building a data product that helps people create and deploy models on the cloud, you have that experience, like you've been the customer. So no one, like even people in the org who are building that product might have less experience than you, who's actually worked on creating that model. So really going back to like your experiences and like maybe someone we've spoken to and bringing that out as like this is like the core need, and maybe add anecdotes to it. Like it always helps to like personify, you know what, I as a product man, or as a data scientist, I was working with my manager, Abhinav, who had this question that he always had, and like that really helps like people draw a picture around like the stories that you have and the experiences that you have. So I think having those anecdotes and really bringing it out in the form of like the customer need should help you stand out.